that in a more egoistic way, rather than more sentimental way. That's as opposed to women. So yes, we do have that struggle.
Jay, thank you so much for letting us know. Okay, guys, so if you're just joining us, we had a technical glitch, and my prayer is, if you're in the comment section, just give us a thumbs up so that we know if we are live or not, because currently it's really hard for me to tell on my end if we are live on Instagram and on YouTube or not. We had a bit of an issue, so we've been talking to ourselves. My panelists, I'm so sorry. Jay, I am so sorry. We've been talking to ourselves for the past 6 minutes.
Clearly, I've also tried checking and realized we were talking to ourselves, but yeah, I can see we're live now.
Logging in on my end, and I was like, wait, is it me? Is it just me? Or maybe something, y'all, the internet is trying to make us look like we don't know what we're doing. But guess what? We know what we're doing. So if you're joining us, I can see, hey, call me Maria, Echa, Boni Bahati, and so many other people that are joining us, Seth Guya, Swakiar, I hope I've said that correctly. Welcome. Okay, so I'm gonna just start from the top again, fam. If you're just joining us, welcome to Masks Off. This is an amazing space. Masks Off actually started with different people coming to our church at Frontrunners and just sharing their stories of hope, stories of God's grace and favor, where they had been and where they were now. And during the pandemic, it became kind of like a weekly thing that we would do and are still doing to just encourage each other, to hear from each other. So if you're joining us on Instagram or you're joining us on Facebook, I just want to say a big hearty welcome to you. Karibu sana. And we are excited about the conversation tonight. So today we're talking about self-acceptance. And I am stressed about this conversation because this is all of us wrestle with feelings of, am I worthy? Am I enough? Do I measure up? Do I need to study some more? Do I need to get another degree? Do I need to live in a different house? People have told me my forehead is too big. People have told me I don't have these skills. Y'all, the list is endless, the list is just endless. And people will always have a reason to kind of put us on a side of the playing field and say we are the other. So we're talking about self-acceptance, and our focus today is specifically going to be on body image. And I just want to start by saying we're not going to finish this conversation today, but our hope at the end of this conversation is that everybody that walks out of this conversation will have some questions that they're going to ask themselves about, how do I talk about myself to other people? How am I encouraging other people so that we can grow together? So if you're joining us, I see Miss Aurelia has joined us. Anders Strong, thank you for joining us. Olive Kish, y'all, thank you so much for joining us. If you are looking for our link, yes, you are right on time. We just had a couple of things that happened that were pretty interesting. Okay, guys, so Frontrunners posted a couple of questions today on their Instagram page, and I don't know if you saw them, but if you didn't see them, I'm just gonna read. I'm gonna read them to you. So the first question they asked were, "Do men struggle with self-acceptance?" And they had a meme of a guy looking into a mirror with his shirt up, counting how many abs he has. Okay, so I don't know how many abs I have. I think today I had to answer that question at a gathering I was at, and I told people I have like a half. I'm in process. Okay, but today's conversation is about all the ways that we base our value based on very, very materialistic things. Yeah, they are materialistic, but they matter. They matter to some people. They matter for some jobs. They matter for sometimes our economic standing in our community and in our families. So how do those things then impact us in the long run? So I just asked Jay, and so Jay, would you mind telling the people again what you just said? Do men struggle with self-acceptance? So I answered yes to this question. I don't know why. I'm not a guy. So sometimes the internet is just not the best place to receive statistics, because you have people like Praise who will respond to a question that is not targeted to them. So Jay, do men struggle with self-acceptance?
Yes, men do struggle with self-acceptance. And it's interesting that you decided to answer that for us. Well, I don't know what you thought we struggle with, but as I had said a bit earlier, is our type of struggle is slightly different from, I think, the ones ladies struggle with. For men, the struggle is more to do with ego, as in the things that build our ego. Like if you look in that at that cartoon, the guy is looking at more of his abs. So for us, it's more of our ability, our strength, our leadership, issues of provision. Do I have money? Am I strong enough? Can I fend for myself? Stuff like that. Yeah, we also struggle a little bit with how we look, but it's mostly based on, I think, how the other gender sees us. If we are just all men in a gathering, none of us will care about how we look. So that's a fundamental difference. But yes, men do struggle with self-acceptance, but it's slightly different. It's not sentimental, it's more egoistical.
Hey, Sawa Jay. You guys, if you're just meeting Jay for the first time, he is a wise man that frequents masks off every so often. And so Jay, we are so grateful for your wisdom and all the ways that we glean from all of your experiences and your education and your family. So we are grateful to have you here today. We have another gentleman who is joining us today who actually has the privilege of serving young people in his life's work. And so Mr. Michael Babu, why don't you answer this question for us as well? From your perspective, in what ways do men struggle with self-acceptance? Because sometimes we think that this is predominantly a female issue. When we talk about body image, when we talk about value and, are you beautiful? Are you enough? When it comes to those areas, we tend to think it's a very feminine conversation, but it's actually not, because humanity is it's all of us. So what would you say about that? In what ways have you wrestled with it, or in what ways do men in your circle wrestle with self-acceptance?
I think Jay pointed out something crucial. It's about the ego for most men. And yes, there is a struggle, and more so when it comes with appealing to the other gender, right? And have I gone through it? Definitely. In high school, it was a big thing, where you want to fit in and marry into what is accepted as the right fit, in terms of attracting the opposite gender. And when it comes to male and male, I would say there is something that would qualify you to be above the rest. Depending on how you look, maybe you may intimidate more. You may be able to get inroads into spaces faster compared to the other people. As I would say, shorter people would struggle more because there's a perception around it. Not necessarily that it is true, but it is what has been packaged over time that people have believed it is true, right? But it is not a benchmark that should be used to measure anyone. So in that space, yes, I have dealt with people who have struggled with that reality. I did struggle with it in high school quite a bit. But eventually through grace and a lot of soul searching, then, you come into reality that you're a different package, and it is good to be different. That different is not necessarily wrong. And yes, you work with what is. Thank you.
I don't know if you guys caught that. You are a different package and you work with what you have and what you have received. Thank you so much for that. And so tonight we are, I don't even know to say excited, but I want to ask everybody in the comment section a question. Today, we asked this in our poll and we had pretty interesting responses. But in this moment in time, on a scale of 1 to 10, okay, in this moment in time, so like it's May, we're almost halfway done with the year. 2020 was hard. 2021 is proving to be just as hard. How do you feel about yourself? And you could answer this question in the comment section with just a number. Just give us a number. And what this is going to do is going to create a space of health and just honesty as we go about this conversation, so that we don't feel like we're just talking to ourselves, but we're actually talking with the community. So in the comment section, between 1 and 10, how do you feel about yourself in this moment in time? It being May, COVID, maybe you were in school and then the borders were closed and then you went home and then now you're back in school. Maybe you're about to take a break. Maybe this season has been difficult for you to get employment or to even meet with your community. How are you feeling about yourself on a scale of 1 to 10? And this is just going to help us, y'all. It's just going to help us set some sort of like guideline for our conversation tonight, so we know who we are talking to. Because I think it's so easy in these conversations to feel like, oh, they're not talking about me, because I don't struggle with that. But maybe there is something that you're struggling with when it comes to your body image, because your body image is the whole person. It's not just in terms of weight or size or height. It really is about sometimes skin pigmentation, your melanin. Are you dark skin? Are you light skin? You know, it's really just all these things, your hair texture, which hair texture. So let's see what people are saying. So Whitney Thua is saying a 7. I see some people who've just joined us. Vijehi, Alvin, Kanini, JC Gish, Karibuni, Sana, welcome. JC Gish says 7. Okay, I like this. We are feeling good about ourselves. Maybe at some point we'll ask why are we feeling good? So on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel about yourself in this very moment? It being May, it being COVID, it being all the things that have happened this year. And maybe we can ask our panelists this. So maybe we'll start with we're joined by a lovely lady tonight, and I'm so excited that she's here with us, Miss Kanana. Why don't you tell us? Why don't you tell the people on a scale with everything that's happened this year, if you had to like have a weight measure, 1 to 10, where are you on that scale? Me, if you ask me, it depends on the day. It depends how I wake up. Let's see. Have we lost sound? I feel like we've lost sound for Miss Kanana. Okay. While we try and figure out this, let's look to Miss Linda. Miss Linda is here tonight, and y'all know when Linda is here, the assembly of the Lord in the comment section is getting ready. So Linda, you right now, because you're just so gorgeous. I mean, there's the dreads you've got going on that are just long and beautiful, and they're yours. Then you just have a way with words, and then you just have a way with fashion and photography. If y'all don't follow Miss Linda, maybe she should give us her credentials. So let's go ahead, Miss Linda, just on a scale. Now, you have to give us like an 8 or a 9, because already there's so much you're putting out into the world.
First of all, praise, just know, I'm not sure I know how to respond to all those comments, but on a scale of 1 to 10, I would say today is one of my 7 days. I'm a 7.5 there. So up on you, Nico. Like, I hope that is an acceptable answer.
Hey, to remember 7.5. I'm like a decimal point. So of course we're gonna receive. We will receive the decimal point. Okay. We are just so grateful to have Miss Linda here with us today. Okay, so in the comment section, Melanie Teriki says 10. Melanie is at a 10. Girl, you gotta tell us what you are doing. Echa needs Jesus, y'all. Mbula Mutunga says 9. Ish. I am Siriko says 7. Y'all are amazing. Michelle Reese says 5.3. And yes, with the decimal points. Aurelia Makita says 8, and then we have Miss Anne Wakaba saying 6. So you guys are like, I think we're genuinely in a really, really good space. So this conversation is specifically important tonight because there are so many things that we are told about what does success look like, what does a value look like, what does worth look like, and we have a way of measuring ourselves based on all these different scales. And I think so often it's so easy for us to measure ourselves by what other people are saying and hold ourselves to account based on how our body should look, how our hair should look, how we should dress, where we should work, where we should live. Should our skin be a lighter shade, and all these things. And sometimes it's easy to say, okay, that's not a big deal. Because if you're a churchgoer, if you're a believer, we hear this all the time from the pulpit, from the pastors, from the preachers, that you are enough, you are made in the image of God. But it's so easy to hear those messages over and over again and still wrestle with your body shape, your body weight, your height, still wrestle with your level of education, still wrestle with, am I enough? And so today, this conversation, we just want to talk about how do we navigate having kind of those wrestlings within us where we feel like we have to measure up to standards of beauty that have been perpetuated by media, magazines, ads we see on the road as we drive home, as we, go to work and things like that. How do we measure up to those things while still trying to convince ourselves? Because sometimes it feels like you're convincing yourself that you are enough, that you are beautiful, that you are valuable, even when you don't put out into the world a book. We're in a generation right now where people are succeeding at very young ages, right? Amanda Gordon, who is the youngest poet laureate in the US of A. She is 22 and she has a book. She's a New York Times best-selling author. And we have so many people, Mark Zuckerberg with Facebook at 18. And so we have all these standards that we're trying to live up to, and it's killing us on the inside. So I just want to start by saying this is a very serious conversation, because when we don't accept ourselves, it has detrimental effects on our mind, our emotional status, our well-being, mentally. It has detrimental effects. The suicide rates in Kenya right now are at an all-time high. And the Kenya Bureau of Statistics says that 87% of women who commit suicide in Kenya are based on comparison issues, which are linked to body image issues. And then that's 65% of men who commit suicide in Kenya also are based to comparison on social media and national and traditional media. And so this is something that's at the heart of what we're experiencing throughout our lives. And so my prayer for everybody on the call today, watching us on Instagram or YouTube, is that we're able to quite literally leave this conversation and just kind of check in with ourselves. Like even on the comment section, when you give us a 6 and a 5.3, how does that translate into everyday life? So let's head on to the conversation. I'm going to ask our panelists today, and I'm going to start with asking Mr. J. I'm just going to ask you to share your story of the first time you felt like you didn't measure up. The first time you felt like your worth was being questioned as a man, as a father, as just a Black boy. When was the first time you felt like you weren't enough? And if you could just share that story with us tonight.
So for me, I think I've had layered experiences. So the first time was in lower primary school. I came in quite young, I think 2 years below most of the other kids. So just not being chosen to participate in any of the sports just because they felt that I couldn't make the team, any team, as in like no team. I think for me that was very, very disheartening. And I think that set me up just to be a loner, because there was no way I could fit in. And that also permeated to extended family when we'd be in shags, and then the boys want to go hunting, but they have to sort of escape without me knowing, because I would be slowing them down, because, hunting was running. So yeah, that was childhood. And then I think now just growing up, meeting people tend to categorize themselves based on their social class. So you're in either primary, high school, or university, and especially primary and high school, people sort of categorize themselves based on their social class. So that was another layer for me. And then there's a time I had a stint outside the country, and I noticed that I would be passed on in terms of making decisions and leadership positions just because I was the boy from Africa. Actually, someone used to call me the boy from Kenya. And you could see they're struggling with, this guy seems to know what he needs to do, but it's like not our culture to give the foreigner, the boy from Kenya, some leadership role. So you get passed on because of that. So I think that's when it's hit me in at different places in my life that there is discrimination, and that really affects how I feel about myself, feelings of whether I'm worth or not. And it can easily make someone start pursuing other things to fill up that void. Yeah.
I think I really like what you're bringing up, Jay, because at the end of the day, whenever we're in any space where we're made to feel less than or little, it's very easy for us to start pursuing other avenues, other things to make us feel wholesome, to make us feel like we are okay, like we're all right. And often we run to things that are very distractive, or we run towards things that actually cause us more harm and more pain, all because somebody somewhere, maybe our parents, our teacher, told us that we weren't good enough, we weren't smart enough, we weren't tall enough, whatever it is. I think we're constantly dealing with this insufficiency in some area. And it starts to pile on because we have all these things, again, that reinforce that in our everyday to-day life. Let's see, I'm gonna go to Miss Kanana now and just ask her, oops, she's not here anymore. Okay, so we can ask maybe Miss Linda, if you have a story of a time when you felt like you were not enough or you were less than, just any season in your life when you have felt like you didn't measure up to the standards of beauty, the standards of success, or whatever it is.
So first of all, thanks, Grace. I think I want to kind of echo what Jay said about the layered experiences. In my case, it started at school, of course, because everybody wants to be number one. Okay, I don't know if it's everyone who wants to be number one, but like me, I grew up knowing the only people who measure up are the people who are number 1, 2, 3. And if you're anything outside those 3 positions, then you don't measure up. And so when I was like in lower primary, I would be number 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Then around like class, I think 5, 6, I think 4 or 5, somewhere there, mid in the middle. Like I stopped being number 1, 2, or 3. And then, that was not very well received. And so that was the very first time I remember feeling that way. And then again, when adolescence hit and your body is not responding to adolescence the way it should. Yeah, so it hits, your body is not cooperating with you. Your boobs are not as big as people's boobs. Your hips are not as big or whatever as people's hips. And then you're short, and then you look like a ball gum because the baby fat is not going away. So yeah, I think there's that, and that kind of ran for a while into high school and into some points in uni again, because like there's a way that you are supposed to look. So if you don't have the number 1, 2, 3 position, then at least have the body to look the part. And so yeah, the self-acceptance thing for me was on those two fronts. The fact that I was no longer the smartest kid in class and I was not looking the part. So it kind of felt like, okay, so then what do you have to offer? Yeah.
Wow. I don't even know how, there's so many layers to that, Linda, because how often do we hear, you are supposed to look like this, or even feel it. Sometimes we don't hear it and it's not reinforced, but we hear you are supposed to look like this, you are supposed to come out this way. And sometimes it's from our family members, well-meaning moms and dads and caretakers who reinforce that message in us that we aren't enough. The way we present, the way we study, the way we come across in the world is not enough. And we're left really just dealing with feelings of insecurity and deficiency moving forward. And that manifests in different ways in relationships. It manifests in different ways in workplaces, with the things that we choose to advocate for or not advocate for. But I'll ask the same question to you, Michael. How, when was the first time you realized that you didn't measure up? When was the first time you realized that just maybe something was not okay, and it was like mixed messaging? Some of us I have the privilege of coming from homes where we were really showered and affirmed and told you are smart, you are kind, you are important. And then there's like the first time when it hits you over the face that this is not true, or I have been sold a lie because everybody else is not saying the same message as my family. So when was the first time for you?
Thank you. 2 scenarios come to mind. The first one was in primary school. I think this was both at home and in school. Growing up in Mombasa was pretty difficult for a dark-skinned child. There were many bad jokes attached to it, to an extent that I remember asking God, accepting his divinity and might to have a skin change, to sleep at night as dark-skinned and wake up as something else. Iyo maombi haikusikika at all. All good though. And when I was born, I had a problem with my eyes. So I was dark-skinned and red-eyed. So my eyes were pretty red when I was small. So it was a difficult cocktail to deal with in primary school. And I thank God for sufficient grace in academics, which worked well in that extent. But it was quite a struggle. And I remember thinking thoughts of even at times wanting to cut myself up, though for a short period of time. And the jokes were pretty intense back in those days. I don't even want to recall them, but all good. So managed to push through, went into high school. In high school, I would say that time for me was when our KCSE results came out. So my parents expected me to score an A or an A minus. I scored a B minus, and my mother was happy, but she was processing the score, if I may say that, and I don't think she told people I got a B minus. I think she left it at B and let the others, decide whether it is a B plus or a B minus. It's subject to how they perceive it, and I remember going to them and feeling their sense of disappointment, asking them we actually had a contract with them, and I told them, okay, I want to go to uni, definitely not qualified to go to public uni. So we have 1 semester to work with. If I fail in that semester, feel free to take me out of campus, invest that money in stocks. If I do, then we have to pull through. And here I am, successfully managed to pull through. But those 2 scenarios come to heart. Thank you.
That is so, oh God. I think something we definitely have to mention today is this whole dark skin, light skin debate and the ways it shows up in our culture today. It's comments we hear when a baby is born, oh, she's pointy, she's gonna be so beautiful. And the ways that we always put those 2 things kind of like at odds, how we kind of assign value based on if you're light skinned, you're more beautiful. If your hair is curly and straight, you're more beautiful. And that definitely has its roots, I'm just gonna say it, in racism and colonialism, and that's sin. Because ideally, the Lord tells us time and time again in Genesis 1:26-27, that he made us in his image. And as we are created, we are beautiful. But that leads into our next question. And that's the question of, ways in which media, so whether this is social media, and you guys, I'm not even about to bash social media today, because if you know me, to know me is to know that I love social media in all its forms. But I also understand what it means, specifically working with my siblings and people that are like just even 3 years younger than me, and seeing how they were introduced to social media at a way earlier age than me, and have to have lived in a world where I have nieces and nephews and cousins who have phones and they're 12 years old. So also understanding their perspective from having to deal with comparison at such a level where for me, I was comparing myself, let's see, I don't even know, to soap operas, maybe like Ukianda Sana soap operas, yeah, at 5 o'clock on all these stations. Like those are the images I was getting, but I didn't have a phone in all the way through high school. I didn't have a phone. I didn't have a phone at home, and I also didn't have a phone at school. And so I didn't have all these images on Pinterest, TikTok, Snapchat, Musical.ly, all these apps telling me, look this way, exercise like this, diet this way, do this to your hair, this is how you braid, this is how you crochet, this is how you do all these things, this is how you bench press. I didn't have that. And so I want to talk specifically to you, Linda, and just talk about ways in which representation on media, so that's ads, that's social media, that's traditional media, TV, CDs, the things we choose to see, how those impact the ways we think and see ourselves. Because sometimes it's easy to kind of think that we are having these feelings in a vacuum, but actually there's so many things that are influencing. When we look in the mirror and say, like Babu said when he was a child in Mombasa, I need to be light skinned because that's beautiful, or I need to have this sort of hair because that's what's considered beautiful. And how we think those things are petty until we realize I'm actually restructuring my whole life, or dieting, or not eating because I'm trying to make myself look a certain type of way. So what's the influence of media when it comes to how we choose to see ourselves, Linda?
I think I'd put it this way. It's more of a subliminal messaging kind of thing, if you were to ask me, because again, I think when I was younger, I was just watching telly. I was consuming content. I didn't exactly know that this content was informing my perception of things. I didn't understand that when I see all the chicks in the videos, they look some type of way, and then nobody looks like me there. I'm like, okay, so now, wale wase wenye wanaka hivi wako wapi? So subconsciously, you start to begin to view that as the norm. And then you try and conform to the norm, because anything that is outside the norm is unacceptable according to whatever it is you're understanding in that moment. And so everything I was watching, of course, was informing how I view myself, how I view the people around me. So if I see someone who looks like the people I see on telly or on the socials, okay, your time akukuwa na socials mingi sana, it was just TV, and then mostly TV. So yeah, if the people I see around me look somewhat similar to what I've been watching, I'm like, Aki, you're so pretty, you're so beautiful. But then if I don't see myself in what I'm consuming, then I feel like there's something wrong with me as a person, because then if that was an acceptable thing, then it would be reflected in whatever it is I am seeing around me. So even in the subliminal messaging, in the things that we listen to, in the books that we read, so me, I knew you're supposed to have a flat stomach, your hips are not supposed to lie, and then, the boobs are supposed to come, and then the hair is supposed to be just, and then I had kinky hair, and so that was a struggle in itself. I see people with natural hair rocking it now, and I'm like, where were you when I was trying to comb my hair, and then it's not combing, and then, anyway, yeah, I'm still healing. But basically, yes, that's what was happening. Subliminal messaging, and of course the content I was consuming was definitely influencing my perception. Yes. Yeah.
Perspective. That is, and that's something that, like, if you walk out of this conversation tonight without anything, maybe you're watching this and you're like, this conversation is not for me. That's one of the things to definitely check on, is like, how is the media that you are ingesting, digesting, constantly binge watching, how is that shaping your perspective about yourself? Like, not even ideologies about sexuality or ideologies about politics. How is it shaping you as an individual, how you see yourself in the mirror every morning? When you ingest all this, content that doesn't have Black or brown people, that doesn't have Africans, that doesn't have, what is that saying to you? Is that creating discontent in you about our country? Like, it seems small, but some of these things are unconscious messages that we're constantly receiving. And I'll go to Babu next and ask kind of the same question, really, is how is media, specifically images on TV and representation in those images, how does that affect the way you have seen yourself or the way we see ourselves as a whole?
We are talking about this, and I remember the story of the ugly duckling, and there's a reason why the ugly duckling was dark. Nowadays I think he's gray, but he was dark, and the rest were yellow or something like that. Anyway, there's a message behind that as well. One of the key facts about how human beings function is that human beings think in images. So if I say, I don't know, bailar or fuego, if you do not understand Spanish, those words are totally blank to your thinking. So definitely you do not relate. But if I tell you that bailar means to dance and fuego means fire, then when I tell you fuego, now you can put an image to it. And when it comes to the media, and I learned this recently, is there are psychologists who go behind this conversation as well. So for example, they were trying to push up sales in the US in terms of smoking. And the image they used to push these sales was, they told women that smoking is them lighting up the torch of freedom. And the sales of women smoking, in terms of them buying cigarettes, rose from, I think, 20% to almost 90%, simply by changing the definition behind it. So when it comes to the images that are sold to us by the media, basically what they do is they leave a layer of definition to our understanding. So when you tell someone beautiful, most of us will never put ourselves as that definition. We would use it as something else. If I tell you happy, you would relate it to having, I don't know, a lot of money, a lot of wealth. If you go to the Japanese community, because of Kaizen, if you tell them content, they look at their health, they look at what they have, they look at immediate family. So those definitions are underlying, and those images basically define how we think, more or less, right? So the media knows how to play around this, and they would push this to your face. There's a comedian who says when they were trying to link up Islam and bombing, what they needed to do was just to show you a bomb and the image of a Muslim, a bomb and the image of a Muslim. So what your subconscious does is it relates the two. So if they've done this with black markets, black sheep, black duck, then you end up associating everything dark with ugly or something of that sort, and everything like anyway. So I think for us, and come to think of it from the context of scripture, why did God say that it is necessary for us to be in his image and likeness? You know, why? And of what importance is it that he wants us to reference our image to him? Now, if we have no understanding of what image we have of God, if God is empty for us in terms of definition, so yes, you have God as a word, but there is nothing clear to you, then it becomes very difficult for you to even accept yourself. You know, if you think of his image in the context of his definition of love, his definition of creativity, of excellence, then you start feeling a sense of, let me say, you feel super juiced, because you know your referencing is extremely beyond even your own understanding. So the media will continue pushing, it will never stop. It all depends with what you choose to consume. But definitely, whatever you see influences how you think. And that's why we are called to be very cautious as to what we put inside, what we consume, as we call it, vitamin I, right? What you consume through the eyes is very crucial to determine how you think about things. But yes.
Wow. What you see determines your perception about what is true and what is false. And so this is in no way bashing social media. Like, I'm a believer, like, you know, all these things with wisdom and caution, right? With the things we're watching on TV, the things that the people we are following. There are some accounts today that I pray by God's grace you just unfollow, because they put you in a headspace that is discontented about the way you look, about, are you successful? There are people you're following who are owning a home and they're, you know, 30, and you're like, oh, I should be doing that. And you have all this pressure around you. And just considering the subliminal messages that are sent across intentionally. It's intentional because there's a reason why everything is created, right? Nothing is for nothing, because there's teams that sit and talk about marketing strategies and ways to get it across so that it reaches the most people and makes the most money, because there's a budget that has gone to that. Jay, I want to go to you now and just ask you, like, how do you measure acceptance? And somebody would ask this question and say, how do you measure success? How do you measure a healthy body image? You can answer this however it relates to you, but it's just like, when it was your first day in school or your first day at a new job, how did you know when you were accepted? What are some of those things that people did or people said to you that made you feel accepted? And then today, being a family man, how do you measure acceptance in a world that keeps tells you that, like, the line has moved? You know, we think it was just get a degree, then now it's get a master's, now it's a PhD. So the line keeps moving and we're like all trying to play catch up. So in your personal life, how have you measured a sense of value, a sense of acceptance, a sense of worth?
So interestingly, I would say acceptance basically just on the attention that people give, and genuine attention, because you can always tell when someone is giving you genuine attention. But also here in Nairobi, I've also noticed that people will give you attention that seems genuine, but it's because they want something from you. And it's very transactional. Nairobi relationships are very transactional, and friendships. So I wouldn't use, again, attention as a measure of acceptance. But I've also noticed the issue of time. If for a long time there's consistency in that acceptance, then you can start getting that sense that someone wants you or someone wants you in their space. But even more than that, what I've also noticed is that even for I myself, based even on the experiences that I went through, is that this world is not fair. It's not just. It would be weird for me to expect everyone to think like me and to like me and to want me. So I have to build myself up. I have to pump myself with knowledge or something of value to give to the world for me to be able to fit in particular spaces. And that's why I think even the Bible talks about, if you see someone who is highly skilled at what they do, they will dine before kings, because you have to have something in this world. It's just what it is. The only person who will accept you empty is Jesus. And it's just what it is. And that's why there's that phrase of, if you've ever had a son who only a mother can love, as in, huu ni mtu, the rest of the world imeamua haiwezi penda tu, ni mama yake tu ndio anaweza mpenda peke yake. So in that sense, I came to that acceptance that I have to have value for me to get into certain spaces. Two, I should not wait for acceptance from anyone. I should just know that that's how life is. If someone accepts me for who I am, then that's well and good, and I'll invest in that. Now, when it comes to family, the coin flips, because now I have 2 kids. And I realize that it's very easy to give attention to one and not give attention to the other. So I think one of the things I usually try to do is like have a moment with each one of them kivyake, as in like create a date for each of them independently. That way they get that sense of acceptance, of affirmation of who they are and stuff like that. So for me, the issue has been that just know that you will waste a lot of energy and time looking for acceptance, but where you're wanted, you will see with time that you actually genuinely wanted, because there are people who love you genuinely. And there are many. It's not like there are not many, there are many. So, but give it time all the time and you will see the spaces where you're wanted and the spaces where you're not wanted.
Wow, I like that. No, thanks for sharing that with us. So if you're joining us just now, whether that's on Instagram or on YouTube, tonight we're talking about self-acceptance, and we're specifically focusing on body image, and that comes with so many different things depending on who you are. So whether that is your weight, whether that is height, whether that is your skin color, whether that is what does success mean to you, and just your worth as a person when how that shows up when you go to work and the things that you do. And so I pray for sure tonight that wherever we are on this conversation, especially with COVID, and maybe we're going back into the world and we have all these unrealistic expectations of ourselves, that we would really just take a look in the mirror and affirm ourselves that we are, first of all, created in the image of God. That is something that has been repeated time and time again tonight, that God made us in his image. And because we are made in his image, that is so, so important. So I just want to ask, I think I'll start with Linda and just say, body image is something that the enemy has really attacked in our world today. We've been given all these images. We've talked about the place of just imaging on social media and on traditional media, what we choose to consume and things like that. And that has led people to all sorts of things, whether that is body shaming, whether that is depression, suicide, self-harm. We have people who are dieting for extensive periods of times because we're dissatisfied with our bodies. And it's sad because this cuts across. I think children start to feel this ways as early as age 3, just starting to notice that I'm treated less, or I show up differently in the world. We have people who say things like, this has literally happened to people when I've been standing right there. This happened to somebody I really love. I was standing right there and a guy literally said to them, I don't date plus size women. And I was like, even if that's how you feel, why would you say that out loud to somebody else, not knowing their story and what they're dealing with and where they're coming from? And so we have all these things that are constantly repeated. Some of it is from our own families. I come from a family where body image is something that has been overly talked about in my family for so long, that it's something that I'm so cautious about because of the ways that it was presented, that a certain shape was beautiful and a certain shape was less than beautiful. And so we are carrying all this baggage and all this weight, and we start to hate ourselves, we start to demean ourselves, we start to harm ourselves, we are cutting, we are obsessing over our weight, whether we are checking our weight, we're preoccupied with our weight, and we're stepping on scales all the time. We have all these things that are happening as a result of feeling like our body image is not okay. And so if you're in our conversation tonight and this is you, I want to encourage you first and foremost to seek help, because your health matters to the heart of God as well. I love a verse in Jude that says that even as your soul prospers, that your body would also prosper, that your life would prosper. God is not just interested in you thriving in your spiritual life, but in all other areas you're not thriving. So Linda, have you ever struggled with body image or been in situations when people have had negative things to say about the way that you present in the world? And how did you overcome that, or how are you overcoming that struggle?
Short answer is yes. I have been in that situation. I have been there multiple times. As a teenager, I was there because my body was bulgamy, like I said, because like that weight was a lot. Now, nimeona watu hapo kwa comment section mkicheka, mnanicheka, lakini it's true. And so basically, when I was a teenager, what happened is I knew I was not supposed to look like that. Why? Because my SI unit of beauty had been informed by the wrong things. And so what happened in that case, I became bulimic. And then at some point, I just stopped eating altogether. And then I was really struggling to lose weight, and it was not happening. And then as a teenager, your appetite is all over the place. You can't stop eating. You can't stop feeling hungry. But then the problem is, you don't want to feel those things. And so I have experienced it as a teenager. I experienced it again as a child because, we said the things that we said about, dropping from number 1 to 3 to being other things. I experienced it in uni again because my body was not what I thought it should be. And so this acceptance, I want to say first and foremost, can be the right kind of acceptance and can be the wrong kind of acceptance. For me, the wrong kind of acceptance came where I went to uni, and then I realized nobody cares who was number 1, number 2, number 3. And then as long as you're acting some type of way, then nobody is paying too much attention to the parts of you that are not perfect. And so what happened is I got in with the crowd of people who are smoking, drinking, turning up, nini. And then with time, I realized my body started changing. And it changed in the sense that the weight went away because now I was more active and everything. And so that acceptance for me felt like, or looked like, me belonging somewhere. And that was the wrong kind of acceptance. And what happened was I kept pushing the boundaries so that I could be a part of that space. And so that's the wrong kind of acceptance. And I want to point out the fact that everybody wants to feel like they belong somewhere. Everybody wants to feel like they're a part of something and they are acceptable. And so sometimes that acceptance will be in the form that requires you to betray yourself in order to fit in. So in my case, I may probably not have been a drinker, partier, smoker, all these things. But then because that's what made me fit in that moment, I became all those things. But then again, like you mentioned, those things come with repercussions. And for sure, the depression came, the suicidal thoughts came, and tendencies came. And, it just became one big mess that I couldn't get out of. And then this thing I assumed would stop after uni, but it didn't stop after uni. Even as an adult, you walk into the workspace, you see people looking some type of way. You want to belong there. You want to feel like you have a place there. And so if the people at work finish work and then they go for drinks after that, that's exactly what you start doing. And then again, as Christians, when I got born again, there's a way I had to look, there's a way I had to talk, there's a way I had to act. And so at every point, we are trying to adjust ourselves to become a part of something. And so it's a question more of what kind of spaces are we creating for the people around us, to make them either feel like they can be true to themselves, or they need to betray parts of themselves in order to fit in. And so I don't know if that answers your question, but yes, the short answer is yes. And the truth is yes, there is a good kind of acceptance, there's a bad kind of acceptance. And so, yeah, the question then becomes, what kind of acceptance is acceptable to us? Do we have standards by which we're living by? We're saying, okay, Sawa, I'm okay being in my skin, even if my skin doesn't look the part, act the part, be the part. Or are we saying that these parts of us that we have pushed uko nyuma, uko, and we have hidden away from the world so that we can be, in that space where we feel like, yeah, now this is the right version of me. And who's to say there's a wrong version? Unless, of course, we're misinformed. And I'm assuming that is why we're having this conversation. So, yeah.
Linda, that is so powerful, because I definitely think that there are moments in our journey in life when we have been in spaces where we have betrayed ourselves, betrayed who we know we are, because we want to be accepted, we want to belong. And that's something that's inevitable, because sometimes you just want to fit in so bad that you don't care what the cost is, even if it has a cost to yourself. And so I love the way you've just put that like in juxtaposition, that there is an acceptance that is correct, and there's also an acceptance that is actually a destruction to yourself. And it's so crazy to me, though, that the extent that we will go to make ourselves belong. But it's also crazier to me the extent that we go to in the ways that we post on social media, comment on other people's posts, even things we think is right. Like I was watching I was watching a YouTube video the other day, and I was like looking for the lyrics, because the song I was listening to was not in Swahili, was not in English, it was in a language I didn't understand. So I was looking up the lyrics, and it was so crazy to me. I should never go to the comment section on YouTube. Now I know. But I went to the comment section, and just the things that people were saying, I just was like, that does not need to go out, because sometimes the things we speak out thinking that we are calling each other out, or we are helping a sister, we're helping a brother, is actually co-signing the work of the enemy, and the ways the enemy is attacking people in their personal lives. And so I just really want to, something that Linda has brought up is, how do we create space? It's something that's on the comment section. I think Echa has talked about it. Michael has talked about it, that we have a responsibility. Forget about being Christians for a moment, because sometimes I think it's so easy for us to take this conversation and feel like, okay, we have levels of Christianity. So am I reading my Bible? Am I a pastor? Then it's on me, then it's on those people to create those spaces. But we each have a responsibility to speak up in matatus, when we hear things that are being said in our classrooms, to speak up in our churches, to speak up in our boardrooms, when we feel like people are being treated in an unjust way, or when comments are made at our family dinners, at our ratios, the places that we are going to on weekends, when we feel like comments are being made towards somebody and it's demeaning. And there are things we laugh about. Let me tell you, people will laugh in the moment, because what do? Do you cry? I mean, seriously, there are things that people will do as a coping mechanism in the moment, but those things really cement a way of thought in the process. So I'm going to start by asking Michael, how do we create spaces where we make people feel accepted, where we make people feel like they belong, even when we have opinions sometimes that are contrary to who these people are? So how do we stop fat shaming? How do we stop creating a standard where all guys should look like this, or people should be dark skinned, or people should have this sort of hair? How do we actually create spaces around us where we can actually propagate health and wellness for our communities?
I think we underestimate the statement that says that there is beauty in diversity, right? And as I mentioned before, different is not wrong. Just because it is not similar to you does not make it wrong, right? And one of the ways I think you can do it is to be very intentional, to want to see the beauty in everyone. When God says that we can see him in creation, I think we always only think about the flowers, the moon, the sun, lions, but we don't think about it in the context of other human beings, that human beings are evidence of his creation. So in all the diversity that is there in human beings, there is a fingerprint of God in each and every one of us, right? We are a representation of him in many different ways. And for me, I personally purpose to make it very intentional to want to see the beauty in others. Understanding how frail and how incomplete we are as human beings, I stopped putting that burden on other people and also on myself. If I'm taking time to accept myself, how can I expect someone else to accept me I have worked with myself for more than 30 years and it is a struggle. Someone knows me for 2 years and I expect them to fully accept me for who I am. I think it's going to be near impossible. So on my part, I celebrate diversity and I speak it. You know, I would tell someone if they do good, I would definitely purpose to point it out. I would definitely tell them, you know, and purpose to do it with all authenticity. If I can't, then I won't speak it. I will find ways of saying it, but to be very intentional towards seeing it. Because I think at times we have our eyes open, but you're very blind to so many things. And that's why we point out the negatives, right? So someone can be there with you, working with you for 15 years, and they do good to you all those 15 years. Then one day they forget something and you only focus on that. Why? Because you have chosen to expand that scenario that it makes every other thing, you know, very granular, as they would say, right? So for me, and working with young people and going into different communities where I would go all the way to Lodwar and experience beauty in such a different way that I know if I did not purpose to see it, then definitely I wouldn't be able to appreciate it. I have, I don't know. I think with that, and I would say is to activate my childish mode, not childish, my childlike. Childish is not good. My childlike mode, right? Where, you know, because I believe children are always in the moment and they would pick out on all these things, you know, they would always pick out, you know, on good shoes, on good scent, on nice hair, on nice eyes, you know, and at times we are so, as Jay was saying, we are not so used to compliments. We always think it's a trade-off, that when someone tells you look good, you actually downsize it. Like, hey, by the way, yo nguo ni poa, hapana hii ni ya mtumba. You know, when you start disqualifying it yourself, right? Because you're not used to it. And then at times it's just one as an individual, you know, quoting the words of a very renowned poet, you know, and he would say, you know, emancipate yourself from mental slavery, right? Now, no one else will free you from, no one else can free you, you know, other than you from that mindset, right? And when we think about it, that responsibility is ours to do. No one else can do it for you. No one else can. The self is crucial in the acceptance. Without the self, there will never be self-acceptance, right? Yeah, so it has to start from within, and it depends with what you purpose to see within you. You know, change how you see, and what you see changes. Change how you see, and what you see changes. I will conclude this by giving this example of my sister. So my sister makes amazing meals, right? But there is one day, I think she had put in a lot of salt than is normal, and everything within me wanted to point it out. Everything within me, like nilikuwa nawashwa. But I remember that she has prepared amazing food all through, right? So I realized this day I will cope with water and we shall dilute that salt in the process of consumption, right? And she picked it up herself and she learns, okay, by the way, leo imekuwa excess, and it worked out for us, right? But I had to continuously battle within myself to want to see that beauty, to want to experience that beauty that she's been giving me all this time, to be able to speak it. So I would say work within you, because what is within you is what will manifest outside. Yeah.
Wow, I love that. I love that. Work within yourself. The journey starts with us, right? Before we could step out and encourage other people and create spaces for other people, it starts right here with us. And more than that, it's the realization that we get to create a life, really a template for generations that are going to come after us. And so what we do today really matters for the people that come behind us. We have nieces, we have nephews, we have cousins, we have people younger than us who are looking up to us, and they are hearing the ways that we talk about ourselves. They're hearing the ways that we talk about each other. They're hearing all the ways that we talk about the world around us, the ways we talk about different tribes and things like that. And they're internalizing those messages. And so you think your kids are not hearing, you think your nieces and nephews are not hearing, people younger than you, your siblings are not hearing the things you're saying, but you're actually co-signing. I love saying that because I think it puts it in perspective. You're co-signing the work of the enemy in those people's lives, because the enemy is using our self to diminish us into believing that we are not all that God has created us to be, when God has told us you are made in the likeness of God, you are divine. So Jay, I want to go to you and just ask, how do you encourage, you personally, how have you encouraged other brothers in your community? How have you encouraged brothers older than you, younger than you, to create a space where they can feel affirmed, where they can feel loved, where they can feel, Yobiz did something so crazy. Y'all, if you don't know Yobiz, you should know him. If you don't follow Yobiz, you should follow him, because he called all his guy friends to this week, I think on TikTok, and then posted it on his Instagram page. And he just called all his guy friends and told them, I love you. And then he recorded their responses, and they were hilarious. Y'all should go see that. But how have you, Jay, encouraged men, younger men, older men, your peers, to kind of just feel affirmed by the ways that you have just gone about it? How have you done that?
By basically first showing them the value in them and showing my concern for them genuinely without wanting anything in return. And for sure, a number of times when someone sees you being concerned about them, they first, as in, wonder why, what do you want? But for me, I've tried to create that. And then also the type of philosophy I stand with and I talk to all my friends about is, when God said, let us create them in our image, in our likeness, he wasn't bluffing. As in, really, every shape is God's shape. At a bolgami, at a kinky hair. So by telling someone that they are too dark, they are too light, they are too fat, you're basically telling God, God, do hapa. As in, really, you actually have no respect. And you're being just childish. Let's just call it out as it is. You're being very selfish and self-centered and egocentric and inward-looking and myopic in your thinking and in your worldview. So I personally do not condone any differing views when it comes to describing someone's body shape, because I mean, I was born the way I was born. I was born wherever I was born. There's nothing I could have changed about that. And you can actually be big-bodied and healthy, which the world doesn't just seem to know that. And I'll give you a very funny story. There's a time we went to Uganda with some friends, and once we alighted the bus, the Boda Boda guys were like, hey, you guys must be from Kenya. Like, why? Because your ladies are very skinny. And the ladies we were with were like, Allah, see, this is how we are supposed to be. Then the guys are like, hey, you Kenyans, you starve too much. And I realized all these things are actually a construct of society, as in how you look and how we make people feel about their body shape, their body size. It's all a construct of society. So for me, I try to talk about it as much as I can, and really to just tell everyone that you're created in the image of God, in the likeness of God. God did not make a mistake. He knew exactly what he was doing. And just the same way, every key fits into a certain lock. Your body shape, your body color, your body abilities fit into a certain purpose that God created specifically for you. So that's how I create safe spaces. I talk about it throughout with without holding back. Praise.
I like that. Yeah, I think that's one of the ways, because some of us don't have a template to have these conversations with our friends, with our families. And maybe you're even watching tonight on YouTube or Instagram and you're just feeling like, I'm just so tired of my family discussing my weight. And I just want to give you the boldness, and we're going to pray here in a little bit, that you would really just have the boldness to step into some of those spaces and say, you know what, guys, it's not okay. It's not okay, and I'm not standing for it anymore. I'm not comfortable with these conversations or these comments anymore, and I need them to stop, and drawing a boundary. We talked about boundaries last month, and drawing a boundary and saying, this, I'm not willing to joke about this, to have a conversation about this. Please don't comment about it. Don't ask me if something has changed. It really isn't our prerogative. And You know, guys literally have said so many things in the comment section. I'm just going to read a couple of comments. We had I am Sirikov say, I can sum up everything with this: be kind. And I think we have the tendency of only being kind to the people that we know. What if we extend that same kindness to strangers? And then Echamia says, if everyone was the same, the world would be dull and boring. It is the diversity in all of us, in the neighbor, in my next neighbor, that makes everybody beautiful. And really the encouragement for us is not just to focus. Sometimes the way we heal, or the way we keep healing in this process, because it's something we're all going to overcome until we reach heaven. The finish line keeps changing. It's something we'll overcome till we reach heaven. For us, it's to keep pouring out into other people and affirming them and advocating for them. And in so doing, we start to actually build ourselves up, because we start to believe the words that we're speaking, despite all the messaging that we're getting from media and all these other places. Linda, I just want you to speak a word of encouragement to people who are wrestling with self-acceptance on whatever scale, whether it's body image, whether it's your level of education, whether it's classism. I don't come from the correct family. I don't come from the correct zip code, or in Nairobi, or whatever it is that we're wrestling with that makes us feel less than, or like Jay was putting it, you're too this, you're too that. And I don't know if you all got this, but Jay said every shape, hey, Shedebo, every shape is God's shape. So I know it's easier said than done when you're dealing with years. Sometimes it's years of people beating you down and telling you, no, you know, do this, do that. Diet, intermittent fasting is like a thing right now, and it's causing a lot of long-term effects in a lot of people who are doing dieting in ways that are not healthy, or haven't consulted with a doctor or professional in any kind. And so, Linda, how would you encourage anyone today who is wrestling with self-acceptance? Maybe they have a chronic ailment, it just can't be helped. How would you encourage them?
Okay. I think I would want to encourage people this way. I would want to start by saying that there is no one point in your life where you get to where suddenly everything is okay. Suddenly everything makes sense. You have it figured out. You've come to terms with the fact that you're not either earning as much as you want to earn, living the house you want to live in, driving the car you want to drive, what else? Relationship in the way you want to relationship. Like, I don't think there's that one switch that is pulled and everything just falls into place. I think at every point of our lives, we're constantly having to be, like, we're constantly challenged to accept the things that we can change. I mean, we cannot change, and the things that, we're constantly being challenged to accept the things we cannot change and do something about the things that we can change. And so as I was thinking about this topic in particular, I realized that the most dangerous version of you will always be the version of you that comes to terms with those things. The most dangerous version of you will always be the awakened, self-aware version of you. And I know, even as I sit here, there are things about myself that I still have not come to terms with. I still have not accepted. And it calls to come into that place of constantly working at it and seeking help where necessary. I believe there is a place for allowing people to speak into your life. If you're struggling with an esteem issue, for example, I believe there's a place of seeking therapy. If you're struggling with a mental issue, I believe there's a place of, if you don't like how you look, for example, and you know it's because you're living an unhealthy lifestyle, man, just stop. Okay, not just stop, but like do something about it. There are things that are within your control that you can change. And so there are things that, for example, for a long time, I didn't like my smile because I didn't have the perfect set of teeth. They were not perfectly aligned. And so I didn't smile. But then here's the thing, there's very little I could have done about that. I can't afford braces. And so the option becomes never smile, or just smile as you are, and someone will somehow find something to appreciate about it. And it begins again. I know it sounds like textbook advice. Oh, accept yourself, love yourself, affirm yourself, speak life into yourself in the mirror. I get it. It's not easy. I have days when I wake up and I feel like, okay, we are just not doing this today. I don't want to do it. But then every step you make counts for something. Every time you push yourself out of bed when you don't want to get out of bed, it counts for something. Every time you get into a space and you feel out of place and you still remain loyal to yourself, loyal to your principles, loyal to the things you stand for, loyal to your beliefs, it counts for something. And somewhere in this world, someone is looking at you and they admire it or they appreciate it, or they're like, somehow I want to become like so and so. And so that place of understanding that we are all God's workmanship, and we are constantly in the process of being refined, constantly in the process of becoming, is a place where I think I would ask the people who are struggling with self-acceptance to recognize that, Aki, there's no day, I don't know, I have not had that day where I woke up and suddenly I was like, yes, everything about me is great, is perfect, is, all those things. There will be days when you will feel like not so great, but then it's about the what you do about it that counts. And there's very many things you can do about it. So I'm asking the people that are watching this, if you are struggling with that, it is very valid. Your struggle is valid. There are people who feel like they're not good enough. There are people who don't feel like, they feel like they don't measure up. There are people who've been written off. There are people who feel like they're too much because they feel too much, or they say too much, or they, like there are people who feel, they're both extremes, people who don't feel good enough, and there are people who feel like they're too much. And I want to say that there is still something that is workmanshipy about you. I'm sorry, it sounds like improper English, but yes, there is still something that is good about you, beautiful about you, and you still have something to offer in this world. And it's just that place of where acceptance is a hard thing, because it feels like letting go of it's like a control issue. I want to fix the things about me that are not perfect. I want to fix the things about me that make me stand out instead of fit in. And so it's letting go of that control. It's relinquishing that control and trusting that the one who made you did not make a mistake in making you the way you look. If you're not smart enough at school, you're good enough at something. There must be something. If it's the work of your hands, if you're an artist and you're not an A student, it's fine. If you're gifted in this area and not that area, find somewhere, or find some way, or find a circle of people, or a coach, or whatever you need to find that will help you tap into those things about you that God has already deposited, to do something, to become that work of art. And but yes, I just wanted to affirm that those struggles are very real, but those struggles don't have to own us. We can do something about it. And yes, we can do something about it.
Amen, Linda. Thank you. You are preaching. You are just making us. Jay, do you have something to say? Sorry.
Well, I wanted just to bring in that aspect of why, as in just looking at how we see ourselves based on how God sees us. And just asking ourselves, why would God make us sensitive to how we look? And I think, so when we come around back for the last comments, I think I will be answering that question, but I wanted to throw it out so that people can think about it as we come to that point.
Yeah, no, I mean, I just love this conversation tonight. And of course there's so many different layers, but I think at the heart of this conversation is really a belief. And our prayer for everyone who joins in these conversations, whether you're watching in your home, or in your bed, wherever you're watching us from, as you watch Netflix, whatever you're doing right now, is really to just pause and think about it. Like Jesus says to us time and time again that he created us, that he made us in his image, that we are wonderfully and beautifully created, that we are the workmanship of his hands. He's an artist and we are, the thing that he created. And then in Jeremiah 1, he says that before you were formed in your mother's womb, he had an idea for you. He set you apart. He appointed you and he spoke life over you. And it's so easy sometimes to lose sight of who God has called us to be in a world where we feel like we have to live up to all sorts of things, all sorts of manner of things, whether that's success, 40, under 40, 30, under 30, all these things, y'all, as in there's so much pressure from all sides. You should be married at this time. You should graduate by this time. You should move out at this time. You should start working at this time and then be promoted at this time. And there's so many things. You should look this way. You should exercise this much. You should diet here and there. You should do this and that. And before you know it, you say, like Jeremiah said to the Lord in verse 7 of Jeremiah 1, he said, but Lord, I am too his too dash was too young. The thing that he said back to God was, I'm too this. You know, and Linda was saying to us, some of us, we feel like we're too much of this, or we're not enough of this, that, or the other. And the encouragement, I think, tonight for each and every one of us, whether you know the Lord or you don't, is to realize that you have purpose. You have purpose. And if God says you're enough, if the creator of heaven and earth, because everything has a creator, if the creator of heaven and earth looks at you and says you are enough, you are valuable, you are worthy, then who are we? Who is media to say that we aren't worthy? But sometimes the journey to kind of bring those two things together is so heavy, especially when you've internalized messages from teachers at a young age, from parents, from your mom, from your dad, from people who should have spoken life over you, but instead chose to speak a lot of pain and hurt over your life. So tonight, as we close, I just want to pray over every single person who is on this call, who, if you're watching this now, if you're going to watch this later, to just be reminded of your worth in God. That you don't have to go searching in your worth in other people's acceptance, in jobs, in education. You don't have to keep looking for your worth, but you can actually know that in Christ, you're more than enough. And then there are some of us who have been the bullies, who have said things that have been hurtful, that God will give us a soft heart, a spirit where we'll be able to know when it's right to speak, just like Michael was saying, talking about just when are moments when we need to talk and when we don't need to say something. When do we need to like put pressure, you know, to kind of sprinkle salt or not at all? And so I just want to say a prayer for those two categories of people. And our belief as a community is that you would get the help you need. If you have been over dieting and it's getting to a place where it's unhealthy, you're intermittent fasting and it's getting to a place where it's unhealthy, or maybe you just have a very low self-esteem in this season. When you look in the mirror, you don't feel valuable, you don't feel worthy, you don't feel like you're enough, you don't feel like anybody finds you to be beautiful or attractive, that you would seek help. And that part of this prayer today is going to be that God will give you the boldness to seek that help. So let's go ahead and just pray. Father, I thank you for every single person that's a part of this community, a part of our church, a part of different church communities in this city, in this country. God, I pray that you would empower every single person, boy and girl, man and woman, to go out into this world, to step out every day and realize that they have inherent value, that they don't have to do anything, prove anything to you, because you gave everything for them without even knowing the sins they would commit. God, you gave your life for us, and you call us and you say we are enough. You call us and you say we are worthy. You call us and you say we are beautiful, and there is purpose in our lives. It doesn't matter what we've done. It doesn't matter what has been done to us. God, there is purpose. And so God, we just speak release from every chain and bondage of addiction, every chain and bondage that tells us we are too much of this or not enough of the other. That God, we would walk out every day and unlearn some of the things that have been deeply cemented within us from messages we've received on media, comparison games we've played with our friends and friend groups. That God, we would believe what you say about us, and that what you say about us truly, God, is enough. God, that above all, when it's all said and done, who you say we are, who you say we have been called to be, that God, that is enough. So God, I pray for every person that has dealt with self-harm, cutting, God, specifically tonight, people that have dealt, oh God, specifically with over dieting and over obsession with weight. God, I pray tonight that you would release us, that they would be a release. That God, we would know that we are beautiful. We would know that we are enough. That when you call us wonderful, when you call us a priesthood, when you call us, God, that we are royalty, that we would believe what you say about us over what the world says about us, over what our families may have said about us. God, tonight I pray that every person on here would empower their communities, their families, would advocate for people when they're being talked down in our workplaces, in matatus, in any space we're in, oh God, that would call each other to be better, that would stop fat shaming, that would stop body shaming, oh God, at any level, that would stop asking people about their weight and stop asking people and making comments about weight. But God, we would choose instead to look at people the way that you see us. So God, would you give us the boldness to step into counseling offices this week? Would you give us the boldness to call the ICC counseling line? God, would you give us the boldness this week to talk to someone about our struggle, whether it's an eating struggle, whether it's a melanin struggle, whether it's a skin bleaching struggle, whatever the struggle is, God, tonight, would you give us the boldness to walk out of this conversation and know that who you say we are, above everything else, God, is enough. So God, we thank you and we bless you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen and amen. Family, if you want to give your life to Jesus and want to make a prayer today to become a Jesus follower, I want to encourage you to send us a DM. You can even comment on our YouTube if you're watching us there. We want to say a prayer with you. We also want to walk with you, because this is the first step to making a life of self-acceptance, because only through Christ can we then see ourselves through the finished work of the cross. I want to invite you to church tomorrow. We get to gather. We're not yet physically gathering, but we get to gather online, and we're so grateful for an opportunity to gather. And guess what? 10:15, we have an amazing service on Facebook right here. If you're watching us on YouTube, we have an amazing service on 10:15 on our Frontrunners W page on Facebook and on YouTube. So come on and join us at 10:15. Send the link to someone. It's never been more easy to share the gospel of Jesus with somebody. So share the link with someone. But I want to specifically encourage you today, if this conversation has triggered you in any way about some changes that you need to make, or maybe convicted you about things that you need to stop doing or start doing, to reach out to us. Reach out to us. If you don't even have our counseling line, just go ahead and SMS us, DM us, on any platform, whether you're in our WhatsApp group, whether you're in our, whichever group you're in, really, just go ahead and let us know. We want to connect you with someone because we want you to walk towards help. So family, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I want to say a big thank you to my panelists, Mr. J, always an honor, Miss Linda, Michael, and we also had Miss Kanana that joined us here at the beginning. Thank you all so much for joining us. This is not a conversation that ends here. I want to say that again. This is not a conversation by any means that ends here. I want to encourage you this week to talk about this with your guy friends. Talk about this with your girlfriend. Ask them, what are you wrestling with when it comes to body image? What are you wrestling with when it comes to self-acceptance? And then start walking with a community. Start walking with your community, the people that God has already set around you. Start walking towards health and wholeness with those people. But until we gather again next week, Saturday, same time, 10 p.m. on here, I want to wish you guys the best week and happy Sunday. Can't wait to see all of you tomorrow at church. Bye.